of Defiance. The forest path to Osaka was a labyrinth of mud and doubt, each step sinking Haruto deeper into a mire of self-recrimination. His boken, nicked and scarred from the frantic escape at Anagawa, hung at his hip like a judgment. At 18, he'd once swung it with dreams of glory, imagining a samurai's nod that would lift him from the dirt of his peasant birth. Now, with Kenji's small hand gripping his sleeve and Aiko's silent steps beside him, those dreams felt like ashes. He was no hero, just a boy who'd fled a battle, branded a traitor by the lord he'd sworn to serve. Every rustle in the underbrush spiked his pulse. Were Oda's scouts already tracking them? Had he traded his village's pride for a fleeting act of defiance that would end in a noose? Aiko moved like a wisp of smoke, her green eyes scanning the trees for threats. Her kunai, tucked beneath her dark kasade, was a cold comfort against the guilt that gnawed her. Saving Kenji had been her choice, a rebellion against her uncle's shinobi code that demanded obedience above all. But each step toward Ishiyama Hongan-ji deepened her fear that she'd doomed them all. She was trained to be a shadow, to kill without hesitation, yet the weight of Kenji's life and Haruto's loyalty pressed heavier than any blade. She glanced at Haruto, his shoulders hunched under an invisible burden, and wondered if she'd asked too much of him. Had she pulled him into a betrayal he could never outrun? Her heart ached with the question, but the answer was a void she dared not face. Kenji, barely 10, shuffled between them, his wooden flute clutched like a shield against the world's cruelty. His wide eyes flinched at every snapping twig, and Haruto's chest tightened at the sight. The boy's survival was their triumph, yet it felt like a lie. They'd slipped through Anagawa's chaos, dodging Nobunaga's cavalry and the screams of dying men, but the war's shadow clung to them. In a farmer's hut, where they'd hidden for a night, whispers had reached them. Oda Nobunaga's wrath had turned to Ishiyama Hongan-ji, the fortified temple in Osaka, where the Iko-iki monks defied his iron grip. If they could deliver Kenji to the monks, he might find refuge. But Haruto's mind churned with doubt. Would the monks welcome a fugitive child, or see him as a liability? And what of himself? Was he running toward salvation or a deeper betrayal? The late autumn wind cut through Haruto's thin kimono, chilling the sweat on his brow. The road grew crowded as they neared Osaka, clogged with refugees, mothers clutching infants, merchants muttering about Oda's approaching army. Haruto's stomach twisted. He'd once polished spears for men like these, men who sneered at his low birth. Now he was worse than a peasant, a deserter who'd chosen a boy's life over his lord's honor.
What if the monks refuse us?
He whispered to Aiko, keeping his voice low so Kenji wouldn't hear.
We've got no name, no coin, just a kid they might not care about.
Aiko's gaze flickered, a storm of fear and resolve in her eyes.
They'll take him,
she said, her voice steady, despite the tremor in her hands.
The Iko-iki despise Nobunaga. They'll see Kenji as a blow against him.
She paused, her fingers brushing her kunai.
But you, Haruto, you could still turn back. Tell Kimura I forced you. Beg for mercy.
Her words were a challenge, but beneath them lay a plea. Don't leave me alone in this. Haruto's jaw clenched, anger flaring to mask the fear that clawed his insides.
You think I'd abandon you? That I'm that spineless?
But the truth was a bitter pill. He was terrified of the shame that awaited if he returned, of the death that loomed if he stayed. Aiko had always been the stronger one, her resolve a blade honed by years of stolen lessons in the shinobi's art. He wanted to match her, to be the man she believed in, but doubt whispered he was only a boy playing at courage.
I'm here,
he said. That's it, the words tasting like ash.
But don't ask me to feel good about it.
They pressed on, the coastal city of Ishiyama emerging through a veil of mist. The harbor teemed with ships, their sails emblazoned with clan crests, but an uneasy hush blanketed the streets. Torches flickered along the city's edges where Oda's scouts moved like wolves. The Hongan-ji temple rose ahead, its stone walls a defiant bulwark against the coming storm. Haruto's heart pounded. This was no village shrine. It was a fortress of rebellion, and crossing its threshold might bind them to a war they couldn't win. He glanced at Kenji, whose small frame seemed to shrink under the temple's shadow, and wondered if this was salvation or a trap. At the gates, monks in saffron robes stood like statues, their staffs tipped with iron. Aiko stepped forward, her voice cutting through the wind.
We seek sanctuary for this boy, an Azai heir. Nobunaga wants him dead, but he's no threat to you.
Her words were bold, but her hands trembled, betraying the fear she buried beneath her shinobi's mask. What if they refused? What if her defiance cost Kenji's life? The head monk, his face etched with lines of hardship, studied Kenji, then turned to Haruto.
And you, spear-bearer, why do you stand with them?
His gaze was a blade, slicing through Haruto's defenses. Haruto's throat tightened. He wanted to say honor, to claim a noble cause, but the word felt hollow.
I want to do what's right.
He said, his voice raw with the weight of truth.
But I don't know if I'm strong enough. I'm afraid I've betrayed everything. My lord, my village, myself.
The admission burned, exposing the doubt he'd buried since Anagawa. The monk's eyes softened, and he gestured them inside. Within the temple, the air was heavy with incense and the murmur of prayers. Kenji clung to Aiko, his flute pressed to his chest, as monks offered them rice and water. Haruto ate mechanically, the taste lost to the turmoil in his mind. Had he saved Kenji only to doom himself? Was this act of defiance worth the shame that would follow? He watched Aiko soothe the boy, her gentle tone belying the storm within her. She was wrestling her own demons, duty to her Iga clan, versus the life she'd chosen to save, the shinobi's code versus the heart that refused to harden. Their eyes met, and for a moment their shared fear was a fragile thread binding them. That night, they stood on the temple's ramparts, overlooking Ishiyama's flickering lights. The distant clank of armor and the glow of torches signaled Oda's army massing beyond the city. Aiko's voice was barely a whisper.
The siege is coming. If we stay, we're choosing to fight Nobunaga. If we leave, Kenji's alone.
Her words hung heavy, each one a stone in the wall of her guilt. She'd defied her clan for this boy, but what if it was for nothing? What if her choice dragged Haruto into a grave? Haruto gripped the stone ledge, his knuckles white.
I wanted to be more.
He said, the confession spilling like blood.
To prove I wasn't just dirt under a samurai's heel. But now I'm a traitor, Aiko. If I fight here, I'm against everything I swore to serve. If I run, I'm abandoning you and Kenji.
His voice broke, and he hated the weakness it revealed.
I don't know how to be brave when I'm this scared.
Aiko's hand found his, her touch hesitant but warm.
I'm terrified too.
She admitted, her eyes glistening in the torchlight.
I broke every rule my uncle taught me. I chose Kenji over my clan, over my duty. Every step we take, I wonder if I've cursed us both. But you're here, Haruto. That's the only thing keeping me from breaking.
Her honesty was a knife, cutting through her stoic facade, and it shook him to see her so vulnerable. The temple's bell tolled, a low hum that echoed Haruto's racing heart. He wanted to be her anchor, to stand as tall as she believed he could, but fear gnawed at him. Could he face Oda's army? Could he bear the shame of running? The questions swirled unanswered as the night deepened. As dawn broke on August 12th, 1570, the horizon blazed with Oda's banners. War horns shattered the morning, and arrows rained toward the temple's walls, their tips glinting like cruel stars. The Siege of Ishiyama Hongan-ji had begun, a crucible that would burn for 10 years, testing the monks' defiance and their own. Haruto drew his bokken, its weight a frail shield against the chaos. Aiko's kunai gleamed in her hand, her face a mask of resolve, but her eyes betrayed the fear she'd confessed. They stood shoulder to shoulder, Kenji sheltered behind them, as the temple braced for war. Haruto's heart thundered with questions he couldn't silence. Was this honor or madness? Would their defiance save Kenji or doom them all? Aiko's glance met his, and in that fleeting moment their shared resolve, fragile, flawed, but unbroken, became their only certainty. As the first shouts of battle rose, and the earth trembled with the march of Oda's army, they faced the storm together, two outcasts bound by a choice that might cost them everything, yet defined the only truth they knew. Bulwark. A defensive wall or protection. The castle's stone bulwark stood firm against the enemy's siege. Crucible. A severe test or trial, a situation of intense challenge. The war became a crucible that forged their courage under pressure. Deserter. Someone who abandons their duty or post, especially in the military. The deserter fled the battlefield, leaving his comrades to face the enemy alone. Incense, a substance burned to produce a fragrant smoke often used in religious ceremonies. The temple was filled with the sweet scent of incense, calming the weary travelers. Kasade. A traditional Japanese short-sleeved garment, precursor to the kimono. She hid her kunai beneath her dark kasade, blending into the shadows. Reprobations, strong disapproval or condemnation, often moral. His actions earned the reprobation of the village, marking him as an outcast. Shinobi. A ninja, a covert agent or mercenary in feudal Japan. The shinobi moved silently through the forest, unseen by the enemy patrols. Unyielding, not giving way, rigid or inflexible. The temple's unyielding walls stood as a symbol of resistance against the invaders.